The rain poured heavily as Alex walked along the empty road, his jacket barely protecting him from the cold. It was late, and the streetlights flickered, casting eerie shadows around him. He had just finished his shift at the small repair shop where he worked, and all he wanted was to get home, eat something warm, and sleep. But as he turned a corner, something caught his eye. A figure stood in the alley between two buildings, a woman, but something about her was different. She was tall, her silver hair shining even in the darkness, and her eyes glowed faintly. She looked weak, as if she had been standing there for hours. Her clothes were torn, and she hugged herself tightly, shivering. Alex hesitated. This part of town wasn't safe at night, but something about her seemed off. She wasn't just lost. She looked scared. He took a step closer. "Hey, are you okay?" The woman flinched at his voice. For a second, she just stared at him, as if she didn't understand his words. Then, slowly, she spoke. Her voice was soft, but had an unusual accent. "You, human?" she asked. Alex blinked in confusion. Yeah. What else would I be?" The woman exhaled shakily, relief washing over her face. Then, suddenly, her legs gave out. Alex rushed forward and caught her before she hit the ground. She was lighter than he expected. "Whoa! Hey, are you hurt?" he asked, looking around. No one else was in sight. She opened her mouth as if to answer, but no words came out. Instead, she closed her eyes, completely exhausted. Alex sighed. "Great, just great," he muttered. He couldn't leave her here, not in this condition. He didn't know who she was or where she came from, but he knew one thing: she needed help. And for some reason, he felt like he was the only one who could give it. The air inside the small human shelter was warm, a stark contrast to the cold, desolate landscape outside. The alien girl sat near the heating unit, her strange, shimmering skin reflecting the dim light. She looked weak, her large, dark eyes filled with both caution and curiosity. The human, a young man named Daniel, placed a bowl of warm soup in front of her. "Here," he said, his voice calm. "It's food. It will help." She hesitated. Her species, whatever it was, clearly had different customs. But hunger overpowered hesitation. She slowly lifted the bowl and took a careful sip. Her eyes widened in surprise. The warmth spread through her, soothing the pain in her stomach. Daniel watched her, fascinated. He had never seen an alien up close before. She was different from any life form he had encountered. Her body was slender, her hands delicate, but with long, sharp fingers. Her hair was not really hair. It looked more like soft, glowing threads. "What's your name?" he asked. The girl paused, thinking. "Sira," she finally said, her voice soft but melodic. "Sira," Daniel repeated, smiling. "Nice to meet you." Sira looked at him curiously. "You help me. Why?" Daniel leaned back, rubbing his hands together for warmth. "Because you needed help. That's what we humans do." She tilted her head. "Not all would help." "That's true," he admitted, "but I'm not like everyone else." Sira studied him for a moment. Humans were strange creatures, dangerous, unpredictable, but also capable of kindness. She had learned to fear them, but this one was different. She lowered her bowl and looked at him. "I owe you." Daniel chuckled. "You don't owe me anything. Just get better." A sudden noise outside made them both freeze. A distant growl. Something was out there. Something big. Sira's eyes widened in fear. "They follow me." Daniel grabbed his rifle and stood up. "Who?" She swallowed, gripping the edge of the table. "Hunters." His stomach tightened. He had heard rumors about alien bounty hunters, dangerous creatures that tracked down fugitives. If they were after her, then he was in danger too. He glanced at Sira. She was shivering, not from the cold, but from fear. Daniel tightened his grip on his rifle. "Don't worry. No one's taking you." Sira stared at him, stunned. He was willing to fight for her. Why? For the first time in a long while, she felt something she had thought was lost. The room was silent except for the soft humming of the spaceship's control panel. The alien girl, Lyra, sat on the edge of the seat, her glowing blue eyes fixed on the human Daniel. Her expression was unreadable, but Daniel could sense her hesitation. "You don't trust me, do you?" he asked, leaning back against the cold metal wall. Lyra's fingers twitched slightly. "I don't trust anyone," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel chuckled. "Fair enough. But if I wanted to harm you, I wouldn't have saved you back there." She tilted her head, as if studying him. "Humans are strange," she murmured. Daniel smirked. "Yeah, I've heard that before." A brief silence followed. Outside the spaceship, the distant stars twinkled like tiny diamonds against the vast darkness. Lyra exhaled softly, her body relaxing just a little. "Why did you help me?" she finally asked. Daniel shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe because it was the right thing to do." "The right thing," Lyra repeated, as if the concept was unfamiliar to her. "Yeah," Daniel said. "Where I come from, if someone's in trouble, you help them. Simple as that." Lyra stared at him for a long moment before shaking her head. "Your kind is different from the ones I've met before." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "That a good thing or a bad thing?" She hesitated before replying. "I don't know yet." Daniel laughed lightly. "Well, let's hope I can prove it's a good thing." The tension between them seemed to ease slightly. Lyra glanced at the control panel. "We should leave soon. They will come looking for me." Daniel nodded. "Then let's get out of here." As he turned to the ship's controls, he felt Lyra's gaze on him. He wasn't sure if she trusted him yet, but at least she wasn't running away. That was a start. The room was silent except for the quiet hum of the ventilation system. The alien girl, Zari, sat on the small bed, her large, glowing eyes fixed on the human sitting across from her. Jake had given her food, a place to stay, and even treated her injuries. She had never met a human before, but he was different from what she had imagined. "You are not afraid of me," Zari finally said, her voice soft but curious. Jake leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Should I be?" he asked with a small smile. Zari hesitated. "Many would be. My kind, we are not always welcome among others." Jake shrugged. "Well, I don't care what others think. You needed help, and I helped. That's all." Zari watched him closely. She had encountered many beings in her travels, but humans were rare. And this one, this human, was kind in a way she had never known before. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. Jake sighed. "I guess I just don't like seeing someone suffer. It doesn't matter if you're human or alien. If someone needs help, I help." Zari's expression softened. She had been running for so long, hiding from those who hunted her. But here, in this small room, with this strange but kind human, she felt safe for the first time in years. "Thank you, Jake," she whispered. Jake grinned. "No problem. Now get some rest. You look like you need it." As he stood up to leave, Zari suddenly reached out, grabbing his wrist. He turned to look at her, surprised by the touch. "Will you stay? Just for a little while?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Yeah, sure." He pulled up a chair and sat down beside her bed. Zari lay down, closing her glowing eyes, and for the first time in a long time, she slept peacefully. The tension in the air was thick as the alien woman, Lyra, looked at Daniel with wide, uncertain eyes. The room was dimly lit, the soft hum of alien machinery filling the silence between them. She hesitated, her violet skin glistening under the pale glow of the ceiling lights. "You don't have to do this," Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible. Daniel shook his head. "I do. If I don't, they'll take you away." The thought of losing her now, after everything they had been through, was unbearable. Lyra had come into his life in the most unexpected way, but now she was the only thing that truly mattered. She bit her lip, her sharp canines barely visible. "Humans are reckless," she muttered. "And you are the worst of them." Daniel smirked. "I'll take that as a compliment." Outside, footsteps echoed down the metallic hallway. The guards were coming. They had no more time to hesitate. Daniel took a deep breath, then grabbed Lyra's hand. Her fingers trembled in his grasp. "Trust me," he whispered. With that, he pulled her forward, pushing open the side panel of the ship's wall. A hidden passage. He had discovered it earlier while searching for an escape route. Lyra gasped. "How did you?" "No time," Daniel interrupted. "Let's go." The two of them slipped inside, the door hissing shut just as the guards arrived outside the room. Holding their breath, they listened. "He has to be here," one of the guards growled. Another voice responded. "If they escape, the commander won't be pleased." The footsteps moved away, fading into the distance. Daniel exhaled slowly, then turned to Lyra. She was staring at him, her expression unreadable. Then suddenly, she did something unexpected. She leaned in, pressing her forehead against his. "Thank you," she whispered. Daniel swallowed. "We're not safe yet." She pulled back, a small smile on her lips. "Then let's go." With that, they moved forward, deeper into the unknown, their fates now intertwined in a way neither of them had ever imagined. The night was colder than usual. The alien girl, still weak from hunger, sat close to the small fire the human had made. Her strange eyes reflected the flames as she looked at him with quiet curiosity. The human, Jack, noticed her staring. He smiled, handing her a small piece of bread. "You should eat more," he said. "You need your strength." She hesitated for a moment before taking it. She had never tasted such food before, but the warmth of it in her hands made her feel safe. As she ate, Jack watched her closely. "You still haven't told me your name," he said. She looked down. I do not have one." Jack frowned. "Everyone has a name." She shook her head. "In my world, only the strong are given names. The weak do not deserve one." Jack's expression darkened. "That's stupid," he said firmly. "You're not weak. You survived all this time, didn't you?" She looked at him, surprised by his words. No one had ever told her that before. No one had ever treated her as an equal. Jack thought for a moment. "How about I give you a name?" She hesitated. "A name?" "Yeah," he nodded. "Something that suits you." "How about Lena?" She repeated the name softly. Lena. It felt strange, but also warm, like something she had lost long ago was finally returned to her. Jack grinned. "Lena it is." She looked at him, something unknown stirring in her heart. This human, so different from anyone she had met, was treating her like she mattered. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she wasn't alone. But just as she was about to speak, a rustling sound came from the darkness beyond the fire. Lena's sharp senses picked it up immediately. Her body tensed, and she turned toward the sound. Jack noticed her reaction and slowly reached for the metal rod he had been carrying for protection. "What is it?" he whispered. Lena's eyes glowed faintly. "We are not alone." Something was watching them from the shadows. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the ship's engines. The alien girl sat across from him, her glowing eyes filled with uncertainty. She had risked everything to be here, and now she wasn't sure what would happen next. The human, Daniel, studied her carefully. He had seen fear before, but hers was different. It wasn't just fear of danger, it was fear of hope. She had lost everything, and trusting someone again must have felt impossible. "You don't have to be afraid," Daniel said softly. She hesitated, gripping the edge of the table. "Humans are unpredictable." He chuckled. "That's true. But sometimes unpredictability can be a good thing." She looked down, her claws tapping against the metal surface. "I have never depended on a human before." Daniel leaned back. "Well, there's a first time for everything." A deep sigh escaped her lips. "My people, If they find out I'm here, they will see me as a traitor. Then we'll make sure they don't find out, Daniel assured her. Her gaze snapped to his, searching for deception. She found none. You would help me, even after everything. Daniel nodded. Of course. That's what humans do. We help. She exhaled slowly. I don't understand humans. Nobody does, he admitted. Not even other humans. For the first time, a small smile touched her lips. It was brief, but it was there. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly across the black void. The ship drifted quietly, carrying two unlikely companions toward an uncertain future. But for now, in this small room, a fragile trust had begun to form. And that was enough. The alien girl's eyes shimmered with uncertainty as she looked at the human before her. She had never expected someone from such a fragile species to stand by her side until the very end. But here he was, determined, fearless, and full of something she had never truly understood before: hope. Are you sure about this? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The human nodded. I told you, I don't leave my friends behind. The enemy forces surrounded them, their weapons humming with energy, ready to strike. The situation looked hopeless, but the human refused to surrender. Instead, he stepped forward, raising his hands, not in fear, but in confidence. You don't have to do this, he said, his voice steady. We can find another way. The alien commander sneered. Another way? You are weak, human. Surrender now, and we might let you live. The human only smirked. You don't understand, do you? Humans don't just give up. We fight for what we believe in. And right now, I believe in saving her. The alien girl's heart pounded. No one had ever defended her like this before. No one had ever risked everything for her. Something inside her stirred. Something new, something powerful. With a sudden burst of energy, she reached out, tapping into the hidden power she had long forgotten. A shockwave erupted from her body, pushing the enemy back. The human shielded his eyes, feeling the heat of her strength, but he did not step away. The alien commander staggered, his expression shifting from arrogance to fear. Impossible. The alien girl turned to the human, breathless. You gave me the strength to fight back. He grinned. Nah, that was all you. I just reminded you who you are. With renewed determination, they stood together. The enemy forces hesitated, sensing that the tide had turned. The human and the alien girl, side by side, were more powerful than they could have imagined. Realizing defeat, the alien commander growled and signaled a retreat. The soldiers vanished into the darkness, leaving the battlefield eerily quiet. The alien girl exhaled, her body trembling. It's over. The human chuckled. For now. She turned to him, eyes full of gratitude. I don't know how to thank you. He shrugged. You don't have to. That's what friends do. For the first time in a long while, she smiled. A true, genuine smile. Maybe, just maybe, humans were more extraordinary than she had ever believed. And maybe, just maybe, this was just the beginning of a new adventure. The alien girl, Lorena, stared at the human, Jake, with wide eyes. She couldn't believe what he had just done. He had risked everything to save her, even when he had no reason to. Her kind had always looked down on humans, calling them weak, but Jake had proved them wrong again and again. You didn't have to do that, she said, her voice trembling. Jake wiped the sweat off his forehead and grinned. Yeah, well, I don't like seeing friends in trouble. Friends. That word made Lorena's heart race. No one had ever called her that before, not even among her own people. Before she could say anything, a loud noise echoed through the forest. The enemy was still searching for them. Jake grabbed her hand. We need to keep moving. They ran through the dense trees, their breathing heavy. Lorena's wounds slowed her down, but Jake never let go of her hand. He supported her, making sure she didn't fall behind. After a while, they reached a hidden cave. Jake led her inside and checked if they were safe. We should be fine here for now. Lorena sat down, exhausted. She looked at Jake, who was already trying to find a way to block the entrance. He was always thinking ahead, always protecting others before himself. "Why are you like this?" she asked suddenly. Jake turned to her, confused. "Like what?" "You keep helping me, even when you don't have to. Even when it's dangerous." Jake shrugged. "I guess that's just how humans are. We don't abandon people we care about." Lorena felt something deep inside her shift. She had been raised to believe that survival came first, that emotions made you weak. But Jake's actions told a different story. Maybe strength wasn't about fighting alone. Maybe it was about standing together. She hesitated, then reached out and placed her hand over his. "Thank you, Jake, for everything." Jake smiled, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. "Don't worry, Lorena. We'll get through this together." For the first time in her life, Lorena truly believed in those words. The alien girl, Lorena, stood before the human, her golden eyes reflecting the soft glow of the distant stars. The war was over. The battles had ended. Yet inside her heart, a storm still raged. "You saved me," she whispered. "You saved my people." The human, Jake, simply smiled. "You would have done the same for me." Lorena took a step closer, hesitating. Her kind had always believed humans were selfish creatures, only interested in their own survival. But Jake had proved them all wrong. "Why?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why did you risk everything for us?" Jake chuckled. "Because that's what we do. We don't leave our friends behind." Friends. The word felt strange to her. No human and alien had ever shared such a bond before. And yet, here they were, standing together, side by side. She looked around at the battlefield, now silent. The war machines lay broken, the sky clear for the first time in years. Hope had returned. "I don't know how to thank you," she admitted. Jake shook his head. "You don't need to." For the first time in a long while, Lorena smiled. A real, genuine smile. Maybe humans weren't as weak as the universe thought. Maybe, just maybe, they were stronger than anyone had ever imagined. And in that moment, she knew this was only the beginning of something greater.